What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Progress on Purpose podcast. We are a community of people who seek to be intentional about how we think, how we speak, how we respond to different things, including our goals. And this week, I was going to get on here and apologize because I did not record last week. So I didn't have an episode. However, I was laying in the bed and I thought to myself, I said, don't football teams sometimes have a week off? And so I leaned over to my husband. I said, what's a bye week? And he said, it's a week of rest. And I said, yeah, that's what I took. I took a bye week last week. So I'm back. However, last week was a bye week. So I apologize for not telling you in advance. However, your girl needed some self-care with everything that's going on and it's crazy. And we're adjusting to this temporary way of life. It is imperative that we take time for ourselves, and unfortunately that means that sometimes things that are still a priority get pushed down a little further down the priority list. And one of the things that I learned from having a conversation with today's guest is that is nothing to apologize for, and it is so needed. Latisha Carr is a life coach and self-care strategist who helps people all over the world build self-care habits into their daily lives through her practice and chart-topping podcast, The Refill with Latisha Carr. I enjoyed this conversation so much with Latisha because she shared how she discovered her need to be intentional about self-care before she could help others. Without further delay, let's jump into this conversation with Latisha and learn how we can be selfish, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially when we're being intentional about self-care. Hello, Tish. Welcome to Progress on Purpose podcast. I'm so excited that you could join us today. More than anything, it brings me so much pleasure to have a platform to share all of the awesomeness that you bring to the table with our world. And as a fellow podcaster, I am elated to share your podcast. So thank you so much for coming on. After today, more and more people are going to know just how dope you are, how amazing you are. And I know that you're going to help us to live intentionally and make decisions as it relates to how we take care of ourselves. So thank you so much for coming on, Tish.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the invite and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, same here. And I'm sorry, I got to call you Tish because that's what I hear when I listen in. So I appreciate it. So, Tish, can you tell us about your personal journey to wholeness? And, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to wholeness.
Okay, definitely. So I think that I have almost innately been on this journey to wellness my entire life and to wholeness my entire life. And when I think about it, I think it really comes from early childhood and just like reminders that my grandmother would give me, and in really small ways. But, to flash forward so I don't have to give you my whole childhood history. When I was about 25, I was going through this really hard time in life. I call it my quarter life crisis. And I really just felt like everything was falling apart around me. I just kind of lost my identity. There was so much change happening in my life that I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I had finished grad school, and I'm like if I could, I would be in school for the rest of my life, right? I'm one of those people. And so after that, I went through a breakup, and there was all these different layers of things that were falling apart, or felt like they were falling apart. Really, it was bringing me together. But around that time, I came to the conclusion that I needed to get my life together and figure out what was going on and find myself. And I went on this journey that has lasted, 5-6 years at this point, of really figuring out who I am as a person, who God wants me to be, who God has really called me to be. And not that I didn't know that before, but really having a deep understanding of what that meant, and that comes with hardships, and that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and that I'm going to have to deal with some things. And so in 2015, I started a blog called Where Do You Dream? And from there, I started doing some personal I started writing and kind of really processing through what I was going through. I started going to writing classes. I took a class on book writing. I was in all of these different programs. I've met a business coach. I met an empowerment coach. I just met all of these people. And I was like, okay. And part of me was like, oh, I need their support or I need their help or something like that. And then another part of me was like, you can do this too. And this is where God is leading you to as well.
Yeah.
And so my journey to wholeness was really, I had to lose myself. Marsha Ambrosius has a song that just says, I had to lose myself so I could love you better. And when I think about that, it's like loving myself better. And so my journey was all these hardships and all of this figuring it out. And it continues. It hasn't stopped by any means, but it's an ongoing journey of like figuring out what direction I'm supposed to be taking, where I'm going, where God is leading me, and understanding that some of the bumps in the road are necessary to complete the puzzle piece, because you have to take those hardships and struggles to get there. So that's really been my journey of wholeness. It's ongoing. And it's really started from this place that felt like the darkest place I've ever been.
Yeah.
And figuring out, how do I get out of this, and where is the light that I'm going towards?
I think that you're going to, or you're on your way to, and already are helping so many millennials, so many people like us who, because I experienced that too. I had my quarter life crisis where at the age of 25, I was like, wait, hold up. When I was 12 or 13, I had this list that was like, okay, by the time I'm 25, house, husband by 30, like all these different rules that I had. And so at 25, when I was out of college, I think I was out of college maybe about 2 or 3 years at that point. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Like, where's this dream that I thought that I was going to have? And even when it came to God, I was in a church, I was in a ministry, and that was a journey itself as well. And so I was in a time where I was very impressionable. And for me, it was just what you said, trying to figure out what is going on. So how how did you figure it out?
I am constantly figuring it out, to be honest. I'm gonna keep it 100. I don't got it all together, but every step of the way, I learn a new lesson. I think that's kind of what I've just really grasped a hold of, that idea that every step of the way, you have to take a lesson from it. And so the first thing that I did, I really started reading and writing again. So I started reading books to kind of pour into myself, and I started writing and pouring out how I was feeling and kind of the experiences that I was having. So I had a blog, and people really seemed to like it. I started like these t-shirts, and I don't do them anymore, but it was like Dream Queen and Dream King, because it's like I have this dream and I know that I'm getting pulled towards it, but I need to keep reminding myself. And so the way that I did that, I read books like Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I read The Alchemist, just about your personal journey. I read How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I read all these books, and I was like, okay, I got this. Like I can handle life, and recognizing that all of this is just experiences. I had to realize that. So it started with reading and writing. Then I started meeting new friends, and I realized I needed to start getting around people who had a vision and had a dream and had a goal. So I would go to these events, and I would go by myself because my friends were not with it. Like,
Yeah.
they were like, I'm not going to an event on a Saturday. We're going to brunch. And I'm like, no, I'm going to this writing class, or no, I'm going to this women's empowerment event, or I'm gonna drive to Philly and go to this conference, and they will be like, okay, cool, because my friends are very supportive and they know me. But they're like, we're not going with you, but you have fun. So I went and I met all these amazing people. I met, people who to this day are my friends, just people that I sat next to. And I believe that God puts you right next to the people you need to be. I'm not an extrovert. I mean, people might think that, but I'm very much introverted. So the people I would sit right next to, I made it a goal. Talk to the two people next to you, the person to your left and to your right. Talk to them, get to know them. If they're not really personable, move on to somebody else, but meet at least one or two or three people where you're at, and really connect with them. And that's how I made, like, my network is just amazing because of that. Not because I worked the room or anything like that, but I sat next to people and I really took the time to get to know them. And and God put me next to the perfect people, right? He put me next to people who were just like, I was supposed to be a part of their journey. They were supposed to be a part of my journey. And that's how it's been for 5 years, 5 or 6 years. So really my journey started that way. I really started just putting myself out there.
Yeah.
I stopped being afraid to kind of step outside of my box. My background educationally is in counseling, right? So in psychology and counseling, but I started going to writing classes, and I started like creative writing classes, and I would go to these meditative writing classes and like all of this mindfulness stuff.
Yeah.
And I really realized that, like, okay, you're built for this. And I would see people speaking at events and I would say, okay, yeah, you got stage fright, but you could do that.
Yeah.
You could do that too. And so my journey really came from stepping out of my comfort zone, stepping out of my regular friends group and saying, okay, I need to network. I stepped out of the idea of no new friends. Like, I really stepped out of that, and it has helped me tremendously to have all of that support under me.
Yeah.
I did a life coaching program that was in San Diego, California. And
Yes.
I went 6 times in a year, didn't know how I was going to do it. And I just figured it out because I was like, I need this, not only so I can help others, but to pour into myself. So really just getting out of my comfort zone is how I did it.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm so like everything you are saying is confirmation to some of the stuff that uh God has been putting in me for the last year. And
Mm-hmm.
even as it relates to going away, I think it was a few weeks ago, I listened to Patrice Washington's podcast, Redefining Wealth, and she was
Funny, I
talking,
met her randomly one time at an
yes.
event.
Oh,
I don't
listen,
know her personally, but I randomly met her once.
so I'm hoping to meet her, and I'm gonna tell you where. So, she was interviewing the gentleman who started the Power Networking Conference in Texas. His name is escaping me right now, but he was also the guy who introduced the whole concept of connect the dots to the world. And in their conversation, she was saying that she, at the age of 20, she went to the Power Network conference, and she didn't even realize that was the first year of it. But something inside of her said, go, because she wanted to be around the people that were going to be there. And she was talking about how you have to go out and find your tribe. Like, if your tribe is not around you, you got to go out and find it. And so that sparked something in me to be like, this actually, I'm taking 2 trips this year outside of my family trips because I'm going to where my tribe is. And
Yeah.
um, I think that that is how we learn to grow. And even in that, it's taking care of self, because sometimes we get so lost right in the things that we do as sisters, as friends, as parents, as whatever, and we don't take the time for ourselves and grow. And it's so easy to get caught up in like, okay, so I have this role now. I'm a wife now, so I got to do wifely things. Yeah, that's true, but you got to do you stuff too, right? So I really, I'm with you with that all the way. I love that. What other ways do you practice self-care?
So outside of kind of stepping out of my comfort zone and those kind of things, I have a lot of ways that I practice self-care. So I, it changes, it fluctuates. So it, a lot of it depends on the season, like the seasons that I'm in
Mhm.
emotionally or spiritually, but also like the actual seasons, right? So in the fall, I may do something different than I do in the winter, in the summer. And one of the biggest things, my very first it's not the first thing I started doing for self-care, but that I can recall was the first time I felt extremely burnt out. I was working in a residential program for mental health, and I was like so burnt out, I was ready to quit.
Mhm.
And the first thing that I did, I took a vacation, 10-day vacation, because I was about to quit. And they told me, like, just go on vacation. And I was like, okay.
Mhm.
So I went on vacation. And then after I came back from that vacation, I decided that I was going to commit myself to having the time alone that I need. Like I said, I'm an introvert. So I realized that what I need is peace and quiet time. So every weekend, and I've been doing this for years and years now, like not every weekend, but every month,
Mm-hmm.
I pick a weekend. That's my self-care weekend. That's just like me to myself by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I need for me.
Yeah.
I do that. At one point, I used to like quarterly book a hotel, and like even if it was a staycation, I would do
Yes.
that. That was some of the like bigger things that I did for self care. But I journal. I journal a lot. I have this planner that I love so much, and for me, it's like daily self care to look at that planner and say, you did all the things that you said you were going to do today, or you didn't do all of the things that you said you're going to do today. What can get you to do that tomorrow? So for me, that feels like self-care, but self-care is really whatever makes you feel full and what makes you feel replenished at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So for me, that kind of stuff works. Going to the gym works for me. Having like a system where it's like, okay, you did all the things that you were going to do this week. You can treat yourself this weekend, and go to brunch or go to dinner. I plan like best friend weekends with my friends, because we're adults, we're busy, we live in different places, we all have a million things to do. So I am intentional about spending time with my friends. So I'll kind of build that into my schedule somewhere. I was talking about my planner. I have like a highlighting code, and I know that if I don't see enough pink, because pink means fun things that
I
I'm
love that.
yeah, pink means fun things that I'm doing. If I don't see enough pink in my planner, I'm like, okay, you need to do something fun. I don't care what it is. Go to a movie, something, because it's really hard. It's really hard sometimes to remember to do things for yourself like that, fun things for
Yeah.
yourself. But for me, it's like, okay, I got to figure out what am I going to do fun for myself. So this weekend, I'm going to brunch with my best friend. That kind of kills two birds with one stone, right? So I do a lot of that kind of stuff, but also spiritual self-care, making sure that I am talking to God and really focusing on that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
All of those kind of things. I pour into myself in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean I never get burnt out, but it means that I know how to replenish myself if and when I do.
I love that. I have a question though. So I can imagine that self-care, it trickles over into other areas of your life. So I'm curious as to how you practicing self-care has affected your relationships, and even just platonic or, domestic or whatever, but how has it affected the interactions that you have, and even on your job?
Yeah,
How
yeah. It makes me a better person, I think. I think when I'm not taking care of myself, everybody knows, because dude, I'm in and it's like everybody can tell. It's like, okay, you need a minute.
Yeah.
Or have you eaten today? So I think in that way, it impacts my relationships to a point that I'm able to communicate better with people
Mm-hmm.
when I'm taking care of myself. I think, today I was talking to one of my former coworkers, and she said, you told me about the color coding thing. And I started thinking about like, oh, I need to plan something fun for myself. She just told me this today. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, I'm so glad a little piece of a piece of me is left here with you. And she was like, no, it really works so much. She has 2 kids or 3 kids. She has 3 kids and all of that. And she's like, it really helps. So I think even being an example to other people about self-care and well-being and taking care of yourself, and being the person that's preaching it to not just my podcast listeners, but to my friends. My best friend is like, I'm so glad you told me about how to keep myself from burning out in this situation.
Yeah.
Um, I have one of my friends who's like, I'm so glad that you've always been there for me. We pray together all the time. So that's like my setting the example of self-care
Mm-hmm.
in those kind of ways. I have a prayer call that I do every Monday with my friends. We've been doing it for like 3 years. And even when I'm not on the call, they still do it. And they may not even realize that was like kind of my way of squeezing in self-care into the routine. But those kind of things like really matter, because it builds connectedness and relationships. And then you're also treating people better. When you feel better, you're treating people better. When you're full, you can pour out more. You
Yeah.
have the capacity. And I always say self-care is not selfish for that reason, because you have more to pour out. Now, people don't always like your boundaries. People might not always be excited about your boundaries, but if you communicate them well enough and you're consistent, they will respect them. Whether, they're like, oh, dang, Tish isn't going to come because it's the third weekend and that's her weekend to herself. But I've communicated enough that they know that's who I am as a person and like what the boundary is. So I think it really enhances relationships, if anything else.
I love that. I'm writing down boundaries should be communicated because
Yes.
that to me
Consistent.
is
They should be communicated and consistent because as soon as you give too much and it's your third self-care weekend that you've given to somebody else, they're gonna be like, girl, that ain't even a self-care weekend for you. What are you talking about?
right, right. I love that. So you got to share the whole color scheme with us now, the colors, because now I need to pull out my highlighters and get my journal together. What are
I
the
wish I could
colors?
reach my journal right now. It's across the room, but um, so green is personal. So gym, laundry, what other things do I do green? You get the point. Personal things. So gym, laundry, all that
Hair,
kind of stuff.
nails.
Hair, get your hair done, get your nails done, that kind of stuff. Pink is fun. There's this, I have a special set of highlighters I use, y'all. There's like 8 or 9 highlighters there. But so there's enough colors for everything. Um, there's like this purplish color, a certain kind of purple, almost magenta that I use if I'm doing something for other people. Like
Yeah.
it's important, not necessarily important directly to me or my business or something like that, but it's important for me to show up for another person. That's its own special color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this dark blue color means I have to work, like I gotta go into an office. Yellow means in my business, like, just working in my business and doing things specifically for my business or my business growth. And let me see, I'm missing a color or a couple colors. Green, red means bills. Red means bills are due. Um,
Is there orange?
There is orange. What do I do orange? Let me think. Maybe I don't use orange. I might not use orange. I can't think of what orange is. There's a certain pinkish color that's not the fun pink, but it's the pink that I use for like spiritual practices.
Uh-huh.
This is very like in depth. I'll show you once we're done. But there's I have the lighter blue means networking. I'm doing something specific to networking, so it's very in depth. I have
I
like a
love
little
that.
code in the back of my journal.
Yes,
And people
yes.
are always like, "You're so ridiculous," but then they're like, "This makes a lot of sense," because it's the planner I use is blocked off by the hours, so it's like this is that block of time, this is that block of
That's
time.
even better.
Right. I have ADHD. I need to look quick and know where I need to be.
I love that. That's even better. To me, I've always said I like my phone. I like that I could put stuff in the calendar, but I need
Mhm.
my planner. And
Me
I
too.
literally write it in both places because I need to be
Yes,
able to see yeah, it's just a whole
yes.
different
And
experience.
it's something about checking something off the list and being like, I do this whole system where say I have the gym, laundry, work, and podcast call, right? And that's what I'm going to
Mhm.
do today. If I check off all those things at the time that I said I was going to do it, I get 2 stars. And when I get a certain amount of stars, I can go treat myself somewhere. So it's like building self-care in and then having a reward at the same time to really be like, okay, you did what you said you were going to do this week, And so that's
Well,
how
what
I kind of keep myself grounded.
I love that. And one thing I'm appreciating about you is that you really about this self-care life. Like there are a lot of people out here who talk about self-care and it's more of a gimmick, but you put it into practice and it's so real for you. So I really
It's
appreciate
so
you.
ingrained. It's just ingrained into who I am. And that's why I
Yeah.
said, going back to like my grandmother, I just remember being a little kid and maybe I didn't want to go to school. And she would go, "You have great grades. If you just need a day, just ask for a day. You don't have to fix it. You can just have a day." And it's just like, it's so ingrained in me to just like figure out how to take care of myself. It's
Yes.
just so ingrained in me, and a lot of it has to do with childhood stuff. But it's like I had to learn how to take care of myself, and so it's ingrained in me to the point that like all my friends know it. I get on people's nerves sometimes, like, "You're not taking care of yourself. Have you been sleeping well?" But everybody expects that from me. They
Yeah.
know that that's the friend that I am. So if I wasn't doing this professionally, this is still who I am as a person.
I love that. I really, really do. You're that friend who's like checking up to make sure that everybody's good and we're and I even you even brought up a point about rearing children. Like, they shouldn't feel like the world is on their shoulders as kids, because then they grow up to be, feel like the world is on their shoulders as adults, and they don't ever get the chance to learn self-care. Like, okay,
Yeah,
school, then this, then that, then, and it's just like, all right, I need a day, I need a minute too. I need a day
yeah.
too.
And I think that that's something you make a really good point, and that's something I preach all the time. And it's a little, I because some of the work that I do, I talk to kids, I talk to teenagers. I see a lot of kids who aren't happy with their lives, don't want to live anymore, don't
Yes,
and I'll
yes,
have a conversation about how are you taking care of yourself? How do you keep yourself feeling safe, or something like that with them. And it's like this aha moment goes off in them that, like, oh, I could do something for me. And I don't, everything doesn't have to be so bad. There is some hope there. And I think self-care, if we're really talking about true, genuine self-care, not just bubble baths and candles and that kind of thing, we're talking about deep down for your soul self-care.
yeah,
Every single person deserves to have that, and it doesn't have to be something you earn. I mean, I'm saying, like, there's some of the rewards and stuff I earn. That's for me, but
mm-hmm.
that feels good to me. But it's not something you have to earn. It's something that innately you should be doing for yourself, because this world is hard. It's so
It
hard to live in this
is.
world, and it's unfair, and it's unjust, and it's all of these things to so many people, that we have to take the initiative and empower ourselves to take care of ourselves, and understand that that's a form of rebellion against all of the hatred in the world, and all of the busyness of the enemy. Taking the time and pouring into yourself is is rebellion against all of that. So being okay with that and being empowered and encouraged to do that is so important. I don't
I
want to
love.
get too on my soapbox about it, but that's how I feel about it.
No, but that's so good. That's so good. Guys, you have to check out the Refill podcast with Latisha Carr, the Refill with Latisha Carr podcast. So I'm definitely going to link that information below so that you can take a listen to more and more of this great stuff, because she lives this. This ain't just, something she read about. This is her life.
I've read about it, I've studied it, I've lived it, all of it.
Yeah.
I've seen when it doesn't work. I've been on the other side of things, and honestly, it's just something I'm very passionate about. And on the Refill, I always share stories of my own personal life. I always give you the perspective of, like, how I am using this in my own life, or how this came up for me. Things like checking my own attitude. Like, I had an attitude, how do I shake that off? All of that kind of stuff. I really try to give real life examples
Yeah.
and my own examples, because it's like, this is a part of life. This is just, it's just a part of life of taking care of yourself and making sure that you are the best version of yourself. And that starts here. It
Yeah.
starts here, and you have to work on it here, and you have to
Hearing your
work
heart,
on your
hearing your
body.
mind.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's truly my passion. I just have to accept that. That's truly.
Yes. And the way that you show up in the world is amazing, and it's helping so many people. So I'm glad that you started a podcast and you didn't keep it to yourself and to your friends, but you share you with the world. That's amazing. I do want to give everyone an opportunity to link up with you and find you, connect with you. But before that, we have a pop quiz. So
Okay.
these are just questions that you answer the first thing that comes to mind as it relates to them. Are you ready?
Okay. Oh, I'm nervous. Okay.
Don't be nervous. It's all good. Okay, I know you could do this.
Okay.
In 3 words or less, describe your journey to wholeness.
Happy, healthy, and ongoing.
Yes, I love that. And we could spend some time on the happy piece, because that in this day and age, in this time, like you just said, we don't experience enough joy unless we are intentional about it. Because
Hmm.
there's a lot in this world that will pull us farther and farther away from the joy, especially if we're not grounded, if we don't take time for ourselves, time to be with God, time to do all that stuff. Girl, we be all over the place. So
I was
yes.
gonna say, I can go on and on about that too. Yes. Yeah.
The second question is, what does progress along this journey look like for you?
Patience. Patience,
Mhm.
persistence, patience and persistence. That's what it looks like.
I love that. What is one thing that people can do to live an intentional, purposeful life starting today as it relates to self-care?
Be unapologetic about pouring into yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that you said self-care is not selfish. I think that's going to be the title of this particular episode because everybody who sees the flyer needs to know that. Like, listen,
It's not.
it's really, really not. I love that. So, Tish, please tell us how we can find you on Instagram, Facebook, all of social media, as well as let us know about any products or services that you have, where to find you online, how to work with you in counseling, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And I'll
So
link everything below in the show notes.
definitely. So you can find me on Instagram. I am at Latisha.Carr on Instagram. I'll be back in April on social media. Fasting from social, or I'm fasting from Instagram right now, but I'll be back on Instagram. So follow me at Latisha.Carr, and you can follow at the Refill Pod as well. On Twitter, I'm at Latisha Carr, and also at the Refill Pod. And you can email me, hello@latishacarr.com, if you have any questions. I'm revamping my services and products at this time. So if you are interested, I do have a guided journal that's available on Amazon. It's called the Dream Chasers Journal, and it's a 90-day guided journal, and it's available on Amazon. I have a planner that I also have called Unleash Your Dreams as well. So those are both available on Amazon. So if you search my name or the Dream Chasers Journal or the Unleash Your Dreams Planner, they're both available on Amazon. I am launching some events this year I'm really looking forward to. So definitely follow me, get connected with me so you can stay in tune about some of the things that I'm going to do. I'm really excited about this Refill Live idea I have, like really bringing it alive and not just in a podcast form.
Yeah.
So be patient with me as I am growing that and moving that brand out of just being a podcast, but also into being events in person and services and products as well. So just stay tuned. And you can always check out my Dream Chasers Journal and Unleash Your Dreams Planner as well.
Listen, let me know when the events are because I'm in Jersey. I'm not far. I will take that drive. Yes. And I'll listen, we all coming. We coming, right? Yep. I hear you answering. Um, Definitely, that is so needed. That is so, so needed. I'm going to be sure to link all of the ways that we can get connected with you on the show notes so that we can stay in touch. Guys, this was a great episode. I hope that you do not keep it to yourself, but that you share, hit that share button on the platform that you are listening to. I also want you to check out the Refill with Latisha Carr podcast. So I'll be sure to link that below. But on your listening device, wait, Latisha, what platforms is it on?
It is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, it's available. Audio Boom. So if you have an iPhone, Android, you want to listen from your computer, you can listen from any device
Yes.
on any of those platforms.
Listen, she has covered all bases. So you have no excuse but to be refilled, okay? Because we need it. We do. We definitely do. Thank you so much, Tish. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. We will talk next week.